These talks are brought to you by Claritax Books and are proudly sponsored by 6 Forward Capital Allowances.
Welcome back to our series of talks on capital allowances. We're now going to turn our attention to some of the special capital allowances rules that apply for cars. This week, we look at the definition of car for capital allowances purposes, and next week we'll consider some of the rules that then apply. In practice, the main difficulty is where to draw the line between a car and a van. A vehicle is not treated as a car for capital allowances purposes if it is of a construction primarily suited for the conveyance of goods or burden of any description. The word construction here is important, and the nature of the vehicle's construction must be considered at the time the vehicle is acquired rather than at the point when it was originally made. It may be necessary to establish whether any modifications are, in HMRC's words, sufficiently permanent and substantial in scale to have altered the original manufactured construction of the vehicle. For example, sliding out the rear seats will not change the construction of the vehicle, but the permanent removal of those seats, together with all the associated fittings, may do so, especially if the rear side windows are replaced at the same time by permanently welded-in metal or fiberglass panels. By way of another example, HMRC take the line that a vehicle with side windows, behind the driver and front passenger doors, will normally be treated as a car. Again, the HMRC view is that the vehicle will usually be a car if it is fitted or is capable of being fitted with additional seating behind the driver's row of seats. There is another statutory test to be considered, however, and a vehicle will not be treated as a car if it is of a type not commonly used as a private vehicle and also is unsuitable to be so used. By virtue of these tests, most emergency vehicles are excluded as long as they are permanently fitted with flashing blue lights. The mere painting of a vehicle, perhaps with the logo of the business, does not change its type or make it unsuitable for private use. So the estate agent vehicle with the company logo blazoned all over it is still a car for these tax purposes. Applying the statutory rules can have some odd effects. A dual-control vehicle for teaching learner drivers is not treated as a car, even though most people would consider it as such. A motorhome, by contrast, is commonly used as a private vehicle and is suitable for such use. As it's not constructed mainly for carrying goods, it ends up being treated as a car for capital allowances purposes. Even an invalid carriage is so treated, though it is not treated as a car for the purposes of calculating a benefit in kind for employees. Luxury off-road and multi-purpose vehicles are also cars for the purposes of the capital allowances rules, unless there are special factors at play. Most taxis are cars, but HMRC do accept that traditional London black cabs should not be treated as such. The reasons for that special treatment are not entirely clear-cut, but it's presumably related to the lack of a front passenger seat, the unusual arrangement of the back passenger seats, and the very small boot space. Some other vehicles are less clear-cut. Double cab pickups will need to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Funeral businesses may also need special consideration. A hearse would seem to fall clearly outside the definition of car, but a funeral limousine might be closer to the line. So the question of whether or not a particular vehicle is a car is not always straightforward. Next week we'll look at the practical implications that follow from the categorization of a vehicle as a car. Thank you for watching. I'm Ray Chidell, author of Capital Allowances and of the A to Z of Plant and Machinery from Claritax Books. This talk was sponsored by 6 Forward, an independent property tax consultancy working with accountants to enhance capital allowances for their clients.